Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews. Today we are going to take a look at another of the older Battat figures, and that is definitely a good thing if you ask me, because for one thing, there are very few reviews of these figures out there, and for two, these figures are very hard to come by, so personally, anytime we get a chance to take a look at one like this, I think it's a great day. So this one is the Maiasaura, and that in its own right is awesome because there are very few figures out there of the Maiasaura. In fact, I think the only ones that I can really think of would be the Safari LTD versions, but there might be some Kyoto because Kyoto has made pretty much everything at some point in time or another as far as their smaller figures go. But again, we don't get very many figures of this species, so Battat making one is awesome. Again, this figure is really old, so it's long discontinued, very pricey and hard to come by, so if you do want to pick one of these up after the review is over, they're going to be kind of hard to get a hold of, and you're probably going to have to pay a pretty penny. But this incredible Battat Maiasaura was actually sent to me in a box full of quite a few fun figures by Semaj Larama, who was incredibly awesome to send over a bunch of figures for us that he had not seen reviewed on the channel, and this was one of them that absolutely blew me away. I was not in any way, shape, or form expecting this figure to be included, so a super huge thank you to Semaj Larama for just being awesome and sending over this and quite a few other figures for us to look at. On top of sending these figures over, they also supplied us with some really nice information for each of the figures that they actually had sent, and for this one, they had stated that the Museum of Science Boston Maiasaura by Battat was part of the final wave released in 1998 and was sculpted in 1/40th scale by the late Dan LaRusso. Unfortunately, the later waves never had any accompanying minifigure. The entire series ended despite being lauded for their scientific accuracy and quality by limited availability and absence from mass market shelves. So a little bit of information there on the figure brought to you again by Semaj Larama. So on top of supplying us with some awesome figures, we also have some awesome information. So again, a huge thank you to Semaj Larama for that. So let's go ahead and get a closer look at this right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt, you can see the head sculpt looks really quite nice for the most part. You've got the beak sculpted out up there, and in general the mouth is sculpted really well right in that vicinity. Beak is a grayish coloration. You can also see the nostrils sculpted out up there. You can see that the eye is kind of bordered and surrounded by a bluish coloration, and then the eye is yellow with a black pupil, and that's the same deal that we can see over here on this side. Really, really nice detailing as far as the overall head sculpt goes and the skin texture of the head sculpt. You've got that crest up there on the top of the dinosaur's head, really nicely painted with a bluish coloration. And here on the underside, you can also see that it's a blue down here as well. The color scheme of the dinosaur is very different than what I would expect to find, and I'm personally not a huge fan of it, honestly. I don't really like the kind of squiggly yellow line that runs out here, and the blue could look good, and it kind of looks good in comparison to the brown, but I definitely feel like they could have done a better job as far as the paint scheme goes. Moving back into the neck, though, you can see lots of creases in the skin as we lead down the neck, and I like how it almost has like a little bit of a wavy appearance to the way that the head is currently positioned. Really does look quite cool. We move into the body. You can see that the skin texture continues to look really nice. You've got the shoulder blade elaborated from the skin a little bit there. As we move down the leg, you can see that the detailing of the skin texture looks really good all the way down here into this front leg. The foot sculpt also looks really quite nice. Moving into the stomach, you can see that the stomach looks really, really nice. Lots of creasing in the skin throughout the stomach, and you can see really fine skin texture, like really fine scales throughout the stomach region of the dinosaur. As you come up here, you can see the hip bone, really nice muscle tone here in the thigh, and the skin texture looks great in the thigh area as well. Lots of creases once again in the skin. You've got the kneecap there in the front. As we lead down the leg, the rear leg, you can see the very nice calf muscle, beautiful ankle, and then the foot sculpt also looks really nice. You've got a nice grayish coloration there for the painting of the nails. I really think that the sculpt of this dinosaur figure is beautiful. And then we lead out the tail, and the tail again continues with that very nice skin texture, really beautiful thick tail that does transition and lead out to a really nice tip there at the end And again, I think it looks great as far as the sculpting goes. The dinosaur has its head turned quite sharply to the right, so you see quite a bit of wrinkling of the skin right there in the neck region, and I think that looks really good as well. Coming back up into the body, you've got the shoulder blade there protruding from the skin quite a bit, and then you can see some of the musculature here of the front leg as we lead down into the foot. Again, you've got the nails painted with a grayish coloration. Coming back up here into the body, the skin texture continues to look fantastic in every possible area that you look at on this figure. And then you've got the really nice muscle tone here in the thigh, the really nice hip bone, once again, elaborated from the skin. You've got the calf muscle, but it feels like this calf muscle isn't as flexed as you see over here, and that's because this leg is about to lift up off the ground, so that looks really good, really nice attention to detail. You can see the nice calf muscle as we lead down the leg here, down into the ankle, and then you've got the foot sculpt over here, really nice foot sculpt, again on this side with the nicely painted gray for the nails. And then we come back up here into the tail, we lead out the tail, and that skin texture looks great, just like the opposing side. The tail is pretty much straight out with a little bit of a curve in a downward position, very slightly, so you're not really going to see any difference as far as the sculpting of the tail goes and the skin texture on this side in comparison to what we saw on the opposing side. But again, the figure overall, as far as the sculpting and detailing goes, is just absolutely beautiful. As far as the size goes, for a length on our Maiasaura, to the tip of the snout, you're looking at about 8¼ inches, or around 21 centimeters. And then for a height, a little over 3 inches, or 8 centimeters, very close to that range. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, Robert Muldoon, and the Attack Pack Colovosaurus next to our Maiasaura, and you could probably get a pretty good idea that this is around the Attack Pack size range. Similar, I will say that, but a little tiny bit larger. But next to the Papo Rex and the other two Mattel figures there, you should hopefully have a pretty good idea of around the size of this Maiasaura. So this Battat Maiasaura is just absolutely phenomenal as far as the sculpt goes. The sculpt is really, really nice, and I love the fact that they have it kind of in a position so close to the ground, because one could say that it's taking a bite to eat, or maybe it's taking a drink, but just the appearance of the dinosaur being down like that really takes me straight back to the old book and movie, actually, Maya, a Dinosaur Grows, where it was all about a baby Maiasaur growing up. Very similar feel to the Maiasaura from Maya, a Dinosaur Grows, and the artwork that was included. So that's really, really cool as far as this figure goes. I think that was a really nice touch, kind of having it appear as though it's maybe leaning over a nest or something, checking on its young. But I think the sculpting and detail of the figure really is great. The skin texture looks beautiful. They've hit up all the perfect areas of including muscle tone. There's not too much as far as skin, like wrinkling and bunching up and folding and everything, showing the movement in the figure. So there is that area that could have been improved on the dinosaur figure, but even excluding that stuff, I still think the sculpt is fantastic, and the overall appearance of this sculpt is really beautifully done. The paint job is not the best. I'm not a very big fan of it. I feel like the tones of color probably aren't the best. The brown works good, I will say that, and even that light coloration, that like almost like a peach up there on the top, looks pretty decent and definitely gives the dinosaur a bit of a flashy appearance and a little bit of a striking appearance, but I don't really like the way they've kind of squiggled that yellow through, leading from the thigh into the tail. Even including the blue could have been pretty nice, but again, it just, that yellow is sort of puts the whole thing off. But if we take that yellow out, I think it would have looked pretty nice and definitely has a decent appearance. The only other thing that I can say about the paint job is that the paint isn't very natural looking on the figure, and the way that it's all applied looks very paint-like as opposed to body color. So there's a few downsides as far as the actual paint application goes, but I think the figure as a whole is still a wonderful piece of dinosaur figure history and an absolutely fantastic version of a Maiasaura as far as the sculpt goes. So again, like I had stated earlier in the review, if you want to pick this up, it's long discontinued, so it'll be kind of a pain in the butt to get a hold of, but I will do my best in the description to include a link to where you can buy one, probably on eBay, for the cheapest price that I could possibly find at that time. So make sure you check the description, pick up this beautiful Battat Maiasaura if you are in fact interested, but before you do that, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.